This video is rated G for gas. You know what happens when a company actually listens to its user community and acts upon that feedback? You get this. This is Oxy Instruments One Mark II. It's a successor to the already powerful Oxy One sequencer, and it's everything that, as a former Mk1 user, I would have wanted in a newer version. You see, the easiest way of dishing out a Mark II of anything nowadays is you just slap on a faster CPU, bigger screen, change the USB port to USB-C, and you pretty much call it a day. And even though the Mark II does deliver in the hardware front, you might be surprised to know that the hardware upgrades are not the star of the show here. Oxy Instruments managed to do something that I wish Roland had done with their SP404 when the Mark II came out. And that is rework the front panel and redesign the workflow to fit the new expanded functionality. Well, they did that. And in doing so, they might have just made one of the fastest roads from inspiration to finished music that you'll ever see in a dedicated sequencer. I've been lucky enough to have been using the Mark II for a few weeks before launch, and in this video, I want to share with you what I think of it beyond the spec sheet, from a regular user's perspective. For full transparency's sake, this video is sponsored by Oxy Instruments, but my opinions here are my own, and they don't get to see it before you do. If you're already subscribed, huge welcome back. If this is your first time here, hi, welcome to the Midlight Synthesis. Let's get started. So let's kick this off with a brief comparison with the original Oxy One. The Mark II features the same quality black metal casing as before, and many of you will be relieved to know that even though it is a bit wider, Oxy managed to keep both the height and depth the same as the original, so as not to disturb your current hardware setup too much if you decide to upgrade. Though the connectivity remains pretty much the same, we do get separate clock and CV inputs now, which, considering the external mod matrix, should come in handy. To the side, you'll notice that the power button is now backlit, and it will blink on and off when it's charging. The Mark II has an SD card slot where you can store projects, groove, etc. This was a major user request, and I'm sure lots of folks are going to appreciate that expanded memory. The front panel has been revamped with a bigger screen and a new button layout that we'll get into a bit later, and also 8 track buttons for up to 64 parallel sequencers, doubling the original's 32. The attention to detail is also still here, giving it that feeling of being a handmade boutique product with an engraved carrying case and matching MIDI and USB cables. Bit of a reminder, Oxy Instruments are not a huge company, but a small team based in Spain. So from one Spanish speaker to another, se basaron, weón. Qué feel esta wea. Now with that out of the way, I'm gonna just cut to the chase and summarize what I think is the greatest upgrade in this entire version in one word: workflow. Even though the original does have a solid workflow, it is important to note that it did start its life with about half the functions and features that it has now, and while the firmware evolved, the button layout remained the same. I'm not complaining, mind you. As an Oxy One owner, the last few years it seemed that every other week we were getting new firmware updates with new features and improvements. The only problem with that is that when the firmware gets a bit bigger, at some point the front panel starts lagging behind, and I know that the SP404 Mk2 owners out there know exactly what I mean. The Mark II manages to fix this in a big way with a couple of tweaks. First, the buttons have been moved around to make a lot more sense than they did before, or at the very least, I feel that the functions that I use the most are more readily accessible now. New buttons also give you direct access to performance, modulation, and generation pages, as well as flow, which you'll appreciate both in performance and compositional duties. Accessing secondary pages was always something that bugged me on the OG, and I feel that the way that the system handles it now is much better. It's all thanks to my new favorite button, the humble page button. This little guy starts blinking when there are more pages in your current menu, and when you press it, you can just cycle through them. It's a very simple fix, but funnily enough, it might be the button that I use the most in the entire device. The bigger screen isn't just for show, and now you have much more information on display at all times, usually with 2 rows of options that you can access with a click of the rotary knobs. The arranger mode has also been redesigned in a way that makes much more sense now to me, where you just tap the sequence in and then you just fine-tune it on the main page. The screen again comes into play here, displaying the status of every track while arranger mode is on, and letting you know how many repeats are left per track, which is a great way of knowing where you're at, especially in the live performance. Speaking of live performance, you have a dedicated mode now, which does something very similar to what the brain on my beloved OPXY does. Depending on what type of sequencer you're using, you get the option to transpose sequences, or in the case of multi-track sequences, you get a kind of beat-repeat style looper, and what I'd call a scrambler. This mode also allows you quick access to mute any of your tracks, including the multi-tracks, which is a great solution considering that now you have up to 64 of them. The flow button is similar to the fill button on the Elektron boxes, but it has a twist. Flow condition, just like fill, sets a step to trigger when flow is on, or not if flow is off. What's clever about the implementation here is that even though you can set flow function through the trick condition menu and rotating a knob, you can also just press flow on a step directly on the sequencer to set it to trigger with or without flow. This makes it insanely fast to play around with and experiment, and it can become a performance feature as well when you get a handle of it. The new repeat engine is a load of fun as well. You can set a global repeat by turning the fourth knob in the main menu, or go at it step by step by clicking the knob, where you can also set read triggers. From then on, you can go even deeper into the repeat menu and step by step assign things like how many repetitions, the duration, velocity, ramp, offsets, probabilities, and more. The amount of parameters, conditions, and probabilities that you can assign a single step is nothing short of impressive, and you can make ever-evolving patterns out of just a couple of well-designed steps. The sequencer modes you all know and love are all still here. A track can be either mono, poly with up to 7 simultaneous active steps. My favorite, chord mode, where you can pick a chord from a grid and can explore different voicings and inversions. Multi-track, where you have up to 8 individual mono tracks. Matricial, and stochastic. Now, there are plenty of videos already out there about each one of these sequencers, so I won't go into much detail here, but I have to pause to mention both mono and matricial modes, as they have undergone huge upgrades in Mark II. In mono mode, you now have the accumulator engine. If you're like me and had never heard of an accumulator before, let me explain. You can set a step to start adding or subtracting note values each time that it triggers, and set a few parameters to control how that step will behave. The amount is how many semitones it will increase or decrease each time the note is triggered, and just below it you have a counter that gives you a tally of the total notes that it has increased or decreased from its base since the sequence started. Mode is how that sequence will behave when it reaches the maximum or minimum value that you have assigned in the next two boxes. This opens up a lot of grounds for experimentation and generative melodies, and it's really fun to use, especially since your melodies can start evolving in unexpected and very interesting ways. The second major upgrade is in the matricial mode. Now, I have a confession to make. I don't like matricial mode, or at least I didn't before, mostly because I didn't understand it, so it really frustrated me. Now, I don't have that problem anymore, largely thanks to SynthDog. Huge shout out. He was in charge of making the manual, did a fantastic job, and if you want me to make a tutorial video on this, just let me know in the comments. The reason that I bring it up is because matricial mode now has a feature that makes it much more user-friendly, at least in my opinion. You can now double tap on any of the parameter buttons, let's say gate, and now you're greeted with a grid view that allows you to quickly and easily set the parameters that you need. It really beats going at it step by step with the rotary knobs, and it's made me use the matricial mode much more now, something that I recommend you do as well if you've been putting it off. There is plenty more to explore in the Mark II, and I'll be sure to make more videos diving deeper into it, but for now, let me leave you with this thought. In my review of the original Oxy, I said that this was a machine that felt like a fellow songwriter, a bandmate you could bounce your ideas off of to create amazing music without it becoming too intrusive. While that remains true here, I feel that the Mark II reaches a maturity in its form and its function that furthers that concept of a machine that's made to help you get to your goal instead of getting in your way. Knowing the team at Oxy, this is just the beginning for the Mark II, and I have to say, we're off to an amazing start. Now, if you're still here and you've enjoyed this video, please remember that you can always support my channel with something as simple as just clicking that like button or leaving me a comment, even if it's just to say hi. If you'd like access to my original music, my multi-sample instruments, and the most awesome Discord community on the face of this earth, head over to my Patreon. Everyone is welcome there. If you want to see my thoughts about the original Oxy One, be sure to check out this video right here. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have a great week. See you next time.